Hello and welcome to Agents Across the Pond. Now, this business rewards discipline, consistency, and the ability to perform when it matters most. Talent helps, however, luck comes and goes. Showing up, doing the work, and earning the trust, that's what builds a lasting career within real estate. Now, every week we bring together perspectives from the UK and the US to have honest conversations about what it really takes to succeed within the estate agency space, the wins, the setbacks, the lessons, and the standards we hold ourselves to. Now, we're not here to talk about the hype of property, no shortcuts, just real conversations with people who are committed to getting better. I'm Liam Gretton.
I'm Danny Smith, and this week we have a very popular guest coming with us. We've got Scott Gunn coming. So I'm going to throw it over to him, just ask him to introduce himself to us and just give us a little bit about his background and tell us a bit about how you operate down in Margate in the UK, mate.
Yeah, sure. I'd love to. Well, thanks for having me on, both of you. I appreciate that. I'm 42 years old. I've been an estate agent now for 24 years. And I always pause at that point in the hope someone will say you can't possibly be 42 and you can't possibly have done it for 24 years. Yeah, no one ever says it, so that's why I usually pause. I'm one of the rare breed of people that pretty much always wanted to be an estate agent. So from about the age of sort of 14 or 15, I used to look through the property pages in the newspapers back when properties used to be sold via newspaper advertising. I used to walk past a row of estate agencies to get to school, and I just thought no one in my family ever wore a suit to work. You know, they're all tradesmen, they're painters and decorators, they're builders, and for me, like most kids, you want to do something different to what you see around you. And I thought, yeah, having a suit, that would be really cool. I really feel like I've made it if I can go to work in a suit. So that was my driving factor at that point. But I always wanted to do it. I thought I'd like the idea of dealing with people. I never wanted a job where I was just stuck inside four walls all the time. I wanted a job where I could think on my feet, and very important to me that no 2 days were the same. So estate agency really appealed to me. And I used to just bombard all the local estate agents every weekend with my CV. Like for months and months, I would just walk down both sides of the high street. And to the point that they would just say, look, we've got your CV, you don't need to keep coming in. And I just kept doing it anyway. And eventually a guy called Alex Doherty, who owned a company called Gibson's, kind of pulled me in and said, look, young man, I've 100% got your CV in my top drawer. If a space opens up, you're my first call. Please stop dropping the CV. And I said, I'm just not going to do that. I'm going to be here next Saturday. And at that point, he said, look, come and have a chat with me out the back, which we did. And lo and behold, he managed to find some space for me and got me into the business. So I was a very, very happy man. And I remember at the end of my first week, just phoning my dad and saying, I've got the best job in the world. Like, I love it. It feels like I've hardly been at work this week because I'm just enjoying it so much. And I remember him saying, yeah, you know, week one, you might not feel like that long term, but, you know, 24 years later, and I still feel exactly the same way about it.
I would say, was that person that you first fell into the business with right there? I don't know, I can't remember, did you say his name?
Alex Doherty, yeah, being
Alex
his
Doherty.
70s somewhere now. Yeah.
Was he like your first real mentor then? Because I feel like this business, you really need someone over your shoulder guiding you, giving you some like sort of real good advice, how to sort of generate business for yourself, etc. It's a little bit different in the model in the UK as well, because you have the estate agency model where they've got the leads coming in for you to work with. But then when you sort of go down the road of entrepreneurial side of things, kind of more like how the businesses operate here in the US, you really do need a mentor that teaches you how to generate your own business, if you know what I mean. So was he that guy for you?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I still remember the first day I walked in and he took me back to the filing cabinet, if you remember filing cabinets in estate agency offices. And my first job was to print the details so that we had like 10 sets of each details in the filing cabinet. And he said to me while I was at the back, he said, who's the most important person to us as an estate agency? And I said buyers, because I thought that was the obvious answer. And he said to me, and it was so stern and he meant every word of it, we don't give an F word about buyers. He said, it's vendors, 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 vendors. We list, we list, we list. And that's a little bit old hat now, but it's still deep within me. Like 80% of what I do is geared towards gaining more instructions and gaining more listings. It's kind of hardwired in me now because that was where I started in an estate agency. But he was a very, very technical trainer. So even now, if I register a buyer and I know I'm going to try and generate the valuation, I will do it in exactly the same way that he taught me to. It was, you do it this way. And you were totally allowed to go off piste if you wanted to, if you won it. So it didn't matter. If you went off piste and did your own thing and you scored the valuation, fine, good for you. But if you went off piste and you didn't score the valuation, you were in trouble. Like, you should have followed the process. And
I think you've just made a really interesting point there, Scott. So obviously this podcast is for agents on both sides of the pond. Obviously, we're on the better side of it, and Danny sadly's on the side that we didn't want 250 years ago. But looking at your kind of career there, 24 years now within a estate agency, and it is very much focused on the seller. Get the listing. That's where the business comes from. I get it. But in the US, Dan, that's totally different because we represent the you represent the buyers as well, don't you?
Yeah, so I think we've had lots of discussions about this, and I don't know how much they talk about it with you, Scott, over there, especially with you guys being a part of EXP as well. Like, buyers agency is a huge part of our businesses over here, so it's kind of something that I was wondering, and we've been talking about this, like, recently we talked about something was coming up when Liam, where you had read something to me that there was a lot of changes happening in the UK.
Yeah.
And we kind of feel like it's still been very slow to change and maybe even adapt to some of the things that we're doing over here in the US, because we find buyer's agency is an integral part of a transaction. You know, someone needs to be supporting a buyer going through the process, because there's a lot of risk involved in buying a house, whether it's structural issues that you're going to be liable for if you take and assume the property. Or whether there's, you know, environmental issues from asbestos to, you know, anything really, like underground oil tanks. So when it comes to that type of stuff, is there any more movement, or do you get any like conversations happen within EXP? Because obviously EXP is a US brokerage, that they talk to you about how to represent buyers or bringing that into sort of your businesses?
yeah, I think I still think that's a long way from occurring over in the UK. I'm lucky because I'm part of the EXP. Over the last 7 years, I've probably visited the States 2 or 3 times a year and spent time with agents. And I've seen how those jaws drop the more we explain how it works over here. When I tell you that we're at 1.25 to 1.5%, when I tell you that a property deal can fall through at any time and a buyer can pull out, a seller can pull out with no financial penalty. And in particular, when I kind of say that we don't earn any money or service buyers in the same way as you do, not just in the States, but I think where the uniqueness here, because actually in most other parts of the world, that's kind of how it operates. You tend to find agents more self-employed and buyers are dealt with a lot more care. I think in certain areas, like if you're in London, I think there's a bit going on there now with splits on buyers. But, you know, if you take my town, for example, I'm in Margate. I've got a property listed. It's on Rightmove, it's on Zoopla, it's on the market. I've got a large enough market share that most buyers looking in our area will be registered with me. I had a call only yesterday from another EXP agent trying to sell me a buyer, and we politely turned that down because the chances are that buyer's going to find the property anyway if they're interested. So why give any amount of the fee around? Which I'm sure many people listening to this will see that as being really short-sighted, but it tends to be what occurs. You get a phone call within a day or two anyway, and that buyer will still want to view the property through you. So I just think the setup is very different. Have there been any changes for you, Danny? Because there's been loads of legal situations around the representation of buyers, right, in the US?
Yes, we were talking about this. So back in 2024, we always were supposed to have a legal documentation to say we represented the buyers, but back then it really wasn't worth the paper it was written on, because a buyer could just send you an email, terminate the agreement via an email, and then go with a listing agent if they wanted to go to use the listing agent. However, in 2024, mate, what happened was the National Association of Realtors over here came up with a solid agreement, which I actually think is fantastic. A lot of older agents struggle with buyers to have this conversation. It's weird because, like, you have to have these conversations with sellers, right? Because there's a legal document there saying, hey, we have to list your property, we're going to be working with you for X period of time, and this is what we're going to do, sort of thing. The same sort of thing is ingrained now into a buyer's agency agreement. It's like, hey, you can work with more than one agent. I don't work down the Jersey Shore, for example. So I'm not going to be driving an hour and a half to show you houses down the Jersey Shore. But also, there's people, for example, and I've used this example before on the podcast with Liam, that I had a buyer who wanted to be by two specific hospitals because he had a son that was in need of a specific hospital because of certain issues that they were going through with their family. And I don't operate pretty much below a certain area of New Jersey. And there's a really nice children's hospital down there that they were interested in viewing homes there. And then there's Morristown Hospital right here local to me, which is another fantastic children's hospital that they were also interested. So I said, listen, I'm probably not going to represent you down that area. So what I'm going to say is in our agreement, I represent you in these areas. And if you want to buy a house down further south by the other hospital, and I'm not an expert in that area neither. So if you want that area, hire another realtor. But in the agreement, we're discussing this transparent, like upfront. Do you know what I mean? So it's a conversation that we're having, and I'm completely fine with. So that was sort of part of the agreement. The other part is like, how do you get paid? So traditionally, the MLS where we used to go and search all the properties, we would be able to see what the commission would be and how much we would be working for when it came to showing homes. Now they've removed that and it becomes a complete negotiation. Even though when an agent that's selling a property has a conversation with the sellers about what they would be willing to pay a buyer's agent, you, the buyer, buyer's agent, when you get to speak with your buyer up front, now you say, hey, listen, I work for this much, and you can dictate what you work for. You can value your own service. Everyone should be able to do that and entitled to that, right? So like, I typically sort of value my buyer's agency service at 2.5%, and we go and view homes, and we have an agreement that says, "Hey, listen, my service is 2.5% with my buyer, and if we find the home and make an offer, we'll put an offer in of 2.5% to be paid by the seller." Now they might come back and negotiate with us that price, or we might have a conversation that'll say, hey, we're willing to pay 2% of the commission. And my buyer then will say, okay, well, we've already had an agreement and we said that, we'll cover up to XYZ amount of commission if the seller's not. And that all gets put into that document and you sign it for a period of time, whether it's 6 months, whether it's 12 months, and then sort of you go on your home search journey with them through there. But that's how we sort of create the transparency and the way that we're going to operate. It creates the working relationship between us and them. I think that's something that
I think, sorry, Dan, I think this brings so much value to that home moving process in terms of ultimately a buyer's negotiating against someone who negotiates day in, day out. Like we know as agents what strings to pull, where to kind of play to ensure that we're getting our client the best amount of money. Now, Scott, I know you've been over to the US a few times and you've spoken to agents. Danny does buyer representation. They do it over there. What do we need to do in the UK to make this a feasible route? Because it's something I've done in the past and I really enjoy it because it brings something different. And I'm a bit of a gimp who likes negotiating against other estate agents. From your point of view, in your market, what do we need to do to implement this?
I think the first thing, and I've never really thought about it before until we had this conversation, but if you're going to find buyers, so if someone approached me to say they want to introduce a buyer to one of my properties, I want to know that's a buyer that they found for a source that isn't just Rightmove, Zoopla, or on the market. So I think if you were marketing yourself in a way where you could come to me and say, I've got people working exclusively with me, then it is worth a conversation. If you're just phoning because someone who wanted to view your 2-bedroom terrace by the park also wants to view mine, then I'm going to ride my luck and assume they're also going to message me to view mine. So I think that's the problem at the moment with UK estate agencies. We're so dependent on the portals that none of us have got a particularly unique offering when it comes to finding buyers or introducing buyers to other agents.
Maybe you've just mentioned something then that took me on a search I did last year for a buyer, Scott, where maybe it's not necessarily about the property, it's about the value we bring. Now, I come across a lot of people who are relocating. They can't be the boots on the ground on the Wirral. They can't be the boots on the ground in Margate. So is there not the ability there to promote a buying agent where you go, look, you're relocating, you're looking for an investment property, you're not in the area. We can go and do that. We can send you the brief. We can nail down your criteria and then you come on the viewings. But I think the biggest element of power there is actually, as estate agents, realtors, is our negotiation ability and the ability to follow that purchase through right the way until completion.
Yeah, and I think also the ability to qualify that buyer properly so that they're packaged up correctly. So what I would say here is, you phone an estate agency in the UK and we ask, what 3 questions are we going to ask? What's your top budget? How many bedrooms you need? And what's your location? Right. So I know what town you want, I know what you're looking up to, and I know how many bedrooms. We don't say, okay, my job here is to be a little bit nosy and try and find out why you need these things. So let me start with the bedrooms. Why do you need 3 bedrooms? Okay, well, we need a bedroom for me, my wife, and 1 for each child. Okay, 3 bedrooms makes sense. You're right, you're looking for 3 bedrooms. Another answer you might get is, well, my wife works from home and she needs a home office. Okay, so could you look at something with 2 bedrooms that had a log cabin in the back garden? And these are just things I'm thinking of in the top of my head.
Yeah.
Okay. So where do you want to be? Well, we want to be in Ramsgate. We don't want to live in Margate. Okay. Bosh, 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 bosh. If I had the perfect house for you, but it happened to be in Margate, but it ticked every other box, would you look at it? Yeah, do you know what? We probably would. Okay. So now you would be able to approach other agents with a properly qualified buyer where you've added value because you've asked decent questions, which estate agents generally don't. So if you approach Rightmove or Zoopla or On the Market or an estate agent's website as an unqualified looker, as an unqualified viewer, you might never have done it before, you might not have done it for 10 years. You're going to go on there and you're going to tick the boxes, 3 bedrooms, Ramsgate, and this is my top budget. So you yourself are not even qualifying yourself correctly because you haven't thought about it. So I think that's where somebody could add value. And also by reputation, like if somebody consistently came to my office with buyers that I didn't have, then they would be adding value where I would want to engage with them every time they come. But at the moment, our buyer agents are just bringing along buyers that we know of anyway.
Yeah, good point.
I'm going to move it on in a second, but I just want to point something out really quick. So for me, like, I don't really care about what the buyer wants at that moment. My job is to qualify the buyer is not going to waste my time and isn't, like, we call them a tire kicker, if you know what I mean, like who's going to view cars and they're just kicking tires, if you know what I mean, just checking out what's on the lot sort of thing. So my first question is, well, have you been pre-approved? And from that point, it's like yes or no. It's like, okay, well, let's start formulating this agreement between the 2 of us and how I operate as a realtor, right? Number, understand what I provide you as value as well. This is an important one. Like, just sold the house, it has structural issues. Like, most people would run away from it, but if you've got a good agent that can sort of tie a whole bunch of things in, right? What I did was I brought 3 different contractors in to price up the cost of fixing the structural issue. It's $68,000 to fix the structural issue. You're still interested in the house or not? Well, I absolutely love the location. Do you know what? I'm interested in the house. Okay, let's use that $68,000 construction price that you've got to fork out to fix these issues with the house to negotiate a new price on the house whilst we're in the transaction. And we've got a bunch of people proving how much the work's going to cost on the property. Now, you don't get that with a buyer over in the UK because you haven't got someone representing you. The only one who's protecting your interest is the bank because it's the bank's interests. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And you're walking into a conversation with yourselves. Like, no offense to any of the agents in the UK, but you don't really care about the buyer. You just care that they close the deal. Do you know what I mean? You don't care whether they assume an asset that's going to put holes in their pockets in the future. Like, it's about helping your seller because that's your job to help them, not the buyer.
You know what? For an average agent, I think that's a good statement. I do think there's a lot of people who are really just, let's just get that deal done. It doesn't matter what happens in the future.
You don't represent them. You don't care for them. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? There is nothing wrong with you not caring about the buyer because you represent the seller and your job's to help the seller get the best that they can because that's your job. But who is going to look after the buyer? And there needs to be talk about that. Even in the world, like you just talked about, like, these people coming and being like tire kickers, essentially, like, you don't know if they're qualified buyers. Well, let's make a process for them to be qualified rather than just like what you want, because what you want is not a process of like are you able to buy these types of homes? Do you know what I mean? And that's kind of where I think the value comes from.
Ask him what you want. If my wife had been asked what she wanted before her first date with me and she had to tick 10 boxes that included height, income, whatever things, she probably wouldn't have said, I'm looking for an impatient man who leaves his shoes in the hallway and cupboard doors open and, you know, likes to drink too much at the weekends, right? But luckily that didn't exist. But in the dating world, that does now exist. You tick smoker, non-smoker, and immediately every person who's perfect for you that might have a bad habit doesn't get shown to you. And it's exactly the same with property.
I think if your missus listens to this podcast, she's going to turn around and go, "How do you know that you can tick smoking and non-smoking on a date now?" Been caught out.
Anyway,
to a quick question: how far away do you think representation is in the UK?
It's 10, 15, 20 years is my gut feeling at the moment, mate. I think it's not on the radar at all.
And actually,
you know, I'm going to pause on that. In fact, I'm going to go back on that because I think the self-employed movement might grow that. So
yes,
the more now we're getting agents in our area, the more we are doing favors for one another and working together more naturally. Now, it's not reached the point of introducing buyers to one another, but I think the very fact that the conversation is coming up more. I've given the wrong answer there. I think it will happen very, very slowly, but I also think it will happen naturally rather than this is just something we do now. Yeah.
Okay. Now, you made a really good point there. Self-employment is growing. So why EXP?
For me, 7 years ago, chance, really. So I don't want any kind of, as Ben and I said on the stage at the conference, neither of us want any kind of recognition as any visionaries, that's for sure. He and I both joined because it was the cheapest way to get my estate agency business launch. And the more I look back now, I would describe that as a bad decision with a good outcome. Because I didn't give it any thought at all. I'd never even looked at EXP World Holdings online. I just took Adam Day for everything he said, and absolutely, luckily, it's all worked out. I joined EXP with the plan of when my business was established enough, 20 properties, 30 grand pipeline, I would leave and set up on my own. That's what I thought. And I told Adam that, and he was very clear. He said, well, then I've got a year or so to make it such a great place for you to be that you don't want to leave. And lo and behold, fast forward 7 years, and you know, I'll be involved with EXP until they put me in the ground, I suspect, at this point.
It's amazing, isn't it? That's exactly why I joined.
So you went from the traditional brokerage scheme in the UK working and transitioned, and what you said, like, it was a bad decision that turned out good. Do you think when you say that it's a bad decision turned good because then it's like, hey, hang on, now this is being a real entrepreneur versus being an employee of a brokerage? Is that what you sort of mean by that?
Yeah, well, the best example of it is you can make a good decision by evaluating a stock to the best of your ability and buy it, and it goes down, and that's bad luck because you made a good decision because you did all your homework. A bad decision with a good outcome can be buying a lottery ticket, right? You don't deserve any credit. You took a 14 million to 1 gamble. At the point you did that, you're very, very foolish.
Yeah.
But it pays off for one person. And I would say the same. I did no research. I didn't know EXP. The only thing I wanted to know is, have you got enough money in the bank that this business will still be going in a year's time when I fuck off and go and do my own thing? And Adam told me what he had in the bank, and I thought, well, that sounds okay to me. And I always teed myself up from day one that if it went wrong after 6 months, I was protected and could get myself away from it. So yeah, I didn't do any digging whatsoever. I didn't look at any other models. I just dived in like most things, signed a contract I didn't read and dived in head first.
Yeah, I signed a contract without reading it as well. Scroll to the bottom, sign my name, right, let's go. Got 7 years. What surprised you most about EXP?
So I think the community that we're growing is incredible, and I'm reluctant to say it because every single way that I could praise the environment and the community of EXP sounds like every single estate agency website, you know, the Spice of Heart family, and you know, all these stuff about their culture that's normally bollocks. With EXP, I think I didn't join for the community. You know, you can imagine when I joined, there wasn't one, right? There's 20 agents in the whole of the UK. You didn't join EXP because you thought, I want to be part of this thing, because there wasn't a thing to be part of. There was no one within 2-hour drive of me doing it, mainly up north. But as it's grown, I think the thing I find quite fascinating, and we're in lots of WhatsApp groups together, Liam, is live now, I could go in one of those WhatsApp groups, ask for help, and I'll have it in the next 2 to 3 minutes from someone in Derby or someone in Cornwall or someone in Cardiff that should have and has got 1,000,001 things better to do than help Scott out in Margate. But I could guarantee if I could do a screen share here live, I would have the answer within seconds, and it'd be a good, well-qualified answer from somebody that's just happy to help. And the bizarre thing about it is, I appreciate we have revenue share and we've got different reasons why we're interconnected. However, the bizarre thing for me is I've worked in companies where the Margate branch hates the Ramsgate branch. This senior valuer within this branch doesn't want anyone to do well other than themselves, even though that all their income is connected to each other doing well. They still don't want anyone else to have any success. EXP, Liam, if you sell a house, I don't make any money out of that. But if you phoned me at 7 o'clock at night and just said, which you've never done, but if you did, if I was free, I would pick up and I'd help you through a situation, and vice versa. I've absolutely no doubt about that. And I think the culture that's been created, having never ever been forced, nobody said you lot have all got to get on. And it just seems to be what's happened. We get other EXP agents open up in our town, which was my biggest fear when I launched, because I thought I want the whole space to myself. And genuinely, when I see other people's boards, I think, oh, good, that's fucking great. I'm glad there's someone else operating in my town.
Mate, there's 6 of us on the Wirral now, and everyone's amazing. Like, I've never had a bad experience with an EXP agent. Now, naturally, people will clash here and there, but overall, like, it's an incredible community. Now, I don't know if Ben had texted you the other week. I was sat there thinking about EXP in the community, and I really hope he sent the voice note, because I found we had workplace. It was a great setting. When we lost that, we went to Facebook groups, and it didn't really seem to be there. And I felt like that connection between EXP and the agents had been lost a little. Danny, Scott is one of the founders of Agents Boardroom, and Agents Boardroom is a community of agents. And I sent Ben a voice note essentially saying, well done for fucking bringing the whole community of EXP back together. And I could open my phone up now, Scott. I'm in 7 groups within the Agents Boardroom setup, and you're right, you can send a message and within seconds someone's got the answer. To the point where this week someone had an issue with another agent trying to claim the fee, and my response was very simple: go for the jugular. That's it, keep the fee. And everyone else has kind of backed it, so hopefully she gets paid on that sale.
And do you know what? Hopefully she does, but if she doesn't, she certainly feels better about it from today, because what I find is, like, you're in the right environment when you say you fucked up, and people A, want to help you, and B, want to tell you when they fucked up way, way worse than you just have. I always think you're in a good place when you say to someone, you won't believe what I did, and they say, don't worry about that, I did something way worse last week. I always feel like that's the best place to be. And it is super cool. And, literally today now, like, I've seen agents out and about. We've all said hello. My local coffee shop now, I went in there the other day. There was only 4 people in there and 3 were EXP agents. And I was in Jamaica the other day, right? I was in Jamaica 2 weeks ago. I was watching the England-Mexico game. So I had my England kit on. So all the English kind of sat together on one side and the Mexicans sat the other side. Absolutely brilliant. And we're in there. And I said, so where are you from? They said York. I said, oh, you must know our Holly. And they went, who? I said, Holly Price. I went, oh my God, yeah, we know Holly, we know. And it's just super cool when that happens now. Like, it's great. I love it.
It's so wild, isn't it? The world's so connected like that as well. And you can just go away on vacation or holiday.
I love how...
show my Americanisms here.
Danny, I don't know if you get this, but everywhere you go, you'll always find a Scouser.
There's a lad called Mark Dutton from Morton, from Morton, who lives here. He's 40 something. He's got 2 kids. Like, I bump into him all the time.
When we say Morton, that's literally like the next village up from where I am now. Mad.
Yeah, he's from there. So I'm going to push it along a little bit, because I kind of want to get into a little bit about how you started building a team. And I know, like, I'm very aware of how EXP runs. I've been tried to be enticed by Liam for an entire 5 years, I'd say, and enticed by other realtors around here as well, which maybe one day you'll capture me, but we'll see. But building a team within EXP is not something that's unknown, because you kind of when you recruit people, you kind of are building your own little, like, sort of team underneath you, if you know what I mean. But there's no need for you to help. Well, I mean, you're going to help them because you brought them into the system, because that's just genuinely what you do, because you're building a really nice community of people, right? But there's no, like, gain from just, or no large gain from building that sort of general pipeline. It's just sort of a thing that the entire organization does. But when you build an actual team yourself, it could be more lucrative, especially for me, how I operate my team. It's kind of like you're running your own business. You've got agents working underneath you, and you then structure things in terms of like commission gets sort of divvied up depending on how you pass leads on to them, and whether they're buyers over here or sellers. But with you, I guess it's more just like, hey, sellers of specific kinds of properties that don't fit your portfolio could fit someone else in your team's portfolio. So how did you start building your team, and sort of what inspired you to start doing that as well, like, I guess?
Yeah, I think we were about 3 years in, and a lot of agents had joined, and the big one for agents in the UK is I want to earn 100 grand a year, right? That's the figure. I've probably spoke to 500 agents. It's very rare they don't give that as their answer when I ask what you want to earn in a year. So everyone says 100 grand. And then you kind of fast forward 3 years, and there's a whole bunch of people that are earning 100, 200, 300 grand a year in some cases, but they're kind of flipping burgers, right? It's you yes, you're doing financially really well, but you're doing the same thing day in, day out. And you're on a hamster wheel, you're on a better paid hamster wheel, but you're still back on a hamster wheel. And we started to get a few murmurs of a few people that were kind of saying, look, I've hit a glass ceiling at EXP, right? There's only so much I can achieve here operating as a solo agent. And, Adam Day rightfully recognised that we would lose some of our best people if we didn't do something relatively quickly. And so he worked on teams, and so he spent a fair amount of time, probably a couple of years, working on teams and trying to get it right. They launched teams about 3 years ago, I think. We're 2.5 years old, so about 3 years ago. And probably out of our top 15 agents, maybe 10 of them gave it a go. I had thought about it, but didn't really know if it was for me. I'd never really managed people before. I'd certainly never run a proper P&L. I'd never had an office and paid staff and things like that. So I was hesitating. And then I bumped into my old boss, not my first boss, my second boss, a guy called Christian Miles. And he owned a company called Miles and Bar that he'd exited from about 3 years before. And his non-compete was coming to an end. And he's 62 now. He was 59 then. And he just said, I've been off work for 2 years. I've sold out for, I don't know how much, but we're talking millions. The company had 250 employees when he left. So it was a big business. Yeah. And he'd been playing golf, and I'd seen him, he'd grown his hair long, was driving around in a convertible, looked super cool, but he was bored. He's a builder by nature. And he was just a little bit fed up of rattling around the house and helping out down the golf course. So he approached me to find out more about teams and said, look, I would be interested if you are, but I don't want to do it on my own. And that for me was too big of an opportunity to turn down, because I'd get the opportunity to work with someone for a few years who'd grown a big business, that would be able to show me what to do and give me advice. And also it worked really well for me, because as a guy who's 42, by the time I'm 45, he might be looking to scale down, and, I can take the whole business on. And that's conversations that we've been very open with one another about. We never wrote a business plan.
Oh, sorry, mate. Did Christian buy into Scott Gunn powered by EXP then at that point? And then, or was it just a whole new business as Footprints?
No, we just started a brand new business. I qualified to be the team leader. So I am, by all intent and purposes, the team leader at Footprints, and Christian is just my first agent. But behind the scenes, we operate a 50-50 limited company, and we split any money that comes in the business straight down the middle, and it's worked really well. We didn't do a business plan, and I'm glad we didn't. I'm glad we didn't, because I would not have mapped out the success we've had. I'd been way more conservative. Within our first month, we had 20 properties on the market and a handful under offer. By the end of month 2, we had 40 properties on the market. By the end of month 3, we were fast approaching 70. And we employed someone. All 3 of us were working in my log cabin in my house. If you made a phone call, you had to step outside the log cabin, because it wasn't big enough to be stood in the same room with someone else on the phone. It was absolute chaos, and I loved it. We had no for sale boards, no business cards. Our website showed our heads from there up for about 6 months. It was so imperfect, but in many ways, I love that. And then we hired somebody to come in and support us. Then we just started getting calls from agents that we knew, asking to find out more about the business. And I'll come back onto kind of our philosophy behind the team in a second, actually, I think, because it's really important. But every single agent who's joined Footprints has contacted us. It's agent attraction in the purest form. I've not reached out to one single person until last week when I did message someone because I think there's an opportunity. Every single one has approached us and said, can we find out a little bit more about it? And I think for
they
me,
they want to be a part of you.
Yeah, and that's great. And it reminds me of the early days of EXP when you're the new kids on the block and, you know, people just need to find out more. And it's really exciting. And I think for me, I remember sitting in a room when we were kind of scrutinizing the teams model with the other people that were going to be team leaders. And as we were brainstorming why somebody would want to join a team, it became really apparent to me that everybody else, and I'm sorry, it was everybody else in the room, had the idea that the really great agents would go out on their own and the agents that weren't quite sure of themselves would join a team. And I remember saying to them, that's not the team I'm building. I'm not building a plan B, and I'm not building a stable for people to come to for a few years and then go off on their own. Now, that doesn't mean they can't, but like EXP, I want to build something so great that they don't want to go and do that. Now, if they do, full support, and that will happen at some point, but it was never going to be my mindset. So what I drew up was a plan of what I wanted the business to look like if I was going to join it. So what would be the business that I would join? And then slowly over time, we've created it and it's gone a bit mad. We've got 15 agents now. We're opened in multiple locations. As of, I'm hesitate to say it, but I will, because I don't think I'm going to have everyone over the line before this podcast goes out. But we've got one agency in town that's possibly about to lose 3 of their 4 members of staff to us. And that's just because somebody joined last year and they've done so well that the others have now got in touch. And I've got that with another business as well that I know is going to lose 3 of their branch managers next week, all to join Footprints, all handing their notice on the same day. I think we can add 10 before Christmas.
Now, for a business on the high street, mate, they're about to lose three branch managers, you say?
3. No, there's one company that's going to lose 3 of their 4 members of staff from one branch.
That's an absolute kick in the dick.
Yep. And there's another big company that I know have got 3 of their branch managers handed their notice in next week to join Footprints, and they're all doing it on the same day.
So I have questions here because I'm really intrigued to how your team operates and how it compares to here and in the US, right? So like how these people are obviously going to be like just the people you mentioned, right? You had one person join you. What is the intrigue for them? What's the point that they're doing really well for themselves, but what's driving that? Like, what's the intrigue? These 3 people have saw a member of staff leave a former company, come to your company. What are they getting from you, or what have you been helping them with that's provided them the success that's ultimately turned the heads of these 3 other people?
Yeah, well, I think what surprises me is every time a new self-employed model opens up in the UK, or every time someone tries to start one, the first thing they seem to do is try and think, how can we be different to EXP? And my view is completely the opposite. Why are you trying to be different to EXP? If I was going to try and open up a business to compete with EXP, I'd make it as similar as possible, quite frankly. You know, there's a company called IAD that have done I think it's 69-31 split. It's bizarre. Why would you launch against EXP?
So it's funny, Scott, you mentioned this. Someone there tried to hit me up and I was straight away like, absolutely not interested whatsoever. There's nothing that puts me on a better platform. And I've spoken to a few people who've spoken to different brokerages. I cannot see another brokerage in the UK that is anywhere near EXP, the way they operate, the community, the benefits. Like, to me, I think TA UK, Perry Power should come over to EX. Like, there's so many. Hey, Perry, if you are listening, mate, get onto my messages there. But no.
Does he not reply? Does he not reply to you, Liam?
He doesn't reply to me. Yeah. No, he does, to be fair. But there's so many brokerages out there trying to be different. I don't get it. I really don't.
All I want to do is be exactly the same. And do you remember the bracelets used to say WWJD, what would Jesus do, right? It was like you could look at it if you were trying to make a good decision.
Live strong ones. And
I would just have WWEXPD on mine, because all we're trying to do is create a smaller version of EXP, and every single decision we make is based on, would EXP do this? There's literally a template there. So in answer to your question, that's what we're doing, albeit we're on a smaller scale. So maybe the environment is that little bit more close because it's like EXP was in the very, very early days. What seems to work really well, remember, I worked really, at Miles and Bar, we paid a consultant to come in and he launched EXP in India, Remax in India. And he said they targeted all of their marketing for the second and third best person in each office. Because the first person will never take your phone call, but he will once the second or third comes over to your business and does well. And that's what we're seeing now. So the conversations we're having are people picking up the phone and saying, I'm in a sweaty office in my suit. My boss has just told me that although I sold 20 houses last month, I've got to sell 22 this month, or some other stupid remark. I'm the one on the bank holiday rota to sit here all day on a boiling hot Monday when there's absolutely no income phone calls coming in. That
for revenue share, I'm going to start phoning agents on bank holiday.
Oh, mate, yeah, 100%. What a good idea I'm going to take.
That's a great idea. Scott, in terms of the growth strategy of footprints, obviously, I know you're probably getting a really good amount of listings from it. My mother-in-law was down Margate and she said, Liam, I keep seeing this footprints with EXP on it. And I was like, oh, it's Scott. It's like he's all over the place. What's been the biggest implementation in terms of referrals, social media, prospecting, creating that new business for footprints to grow to what it is now?
I think we did do quite a lot of canvassing in the early days. So we used to do, we would drop 40,000 leaflets at a time. So we did go pretty gung-ho on that. We spent about 50 grand last year on paper advertising, which sounds so out of date now, but it's so out of date, no one else does it, and therefore it's working again. It's working again, I think, because we're kind of the only people who are doing it. We are now investing quite heavily into our social media. But honestly, it just seems to be word of mouth from going out there and doing a good job. So we're getting, there's loads of, obviously, Margate Facebook chat and Ramsgate Facebook chat. Every time someone goes on there and says, who's a good estate agent, we are 70 to 80% of the recommendations every single time. But I would just sit and watch it at home. I'll just sit and watch it going, oh my God, someone else has just said us. Or, so I think generally speaking, the word of mouth is out there. Also, perception becomes reality, doesn't it? And we've got a lot of boards up now. We've got 300 odd properties on the market. Most have for sale boards up. So you can't really turn a corner without seeing them. They're quite sort of recognizable. They're a bit different. We also have pictures on the boards now as well, which I know is within EXP is fairly common, but outside of EXP is still fairly unusual. So I think that stands out. We do 0-week contracts, so to not use us, if you're torn between two agents and one's 0 weeks and one's 20 weeks, that's fairly easy to make your mind up.
I'm sorry, guys. I don't know if you can hear the strimmer on the other side of this door going.
Right.
I can't.
But
no.
You can't because he's really putting me off. I'm going to have to go in and get him in a headlock soon. Scott, in terms of, you were one of the early adopters of Teams within the UK. And I think you are kind of the trailblazer of Teams. When I think about the people out there, I know kind of Adam Mackay's come into it and he brought his business over. You've started from scratch rather than bringing a business over. How have you been able to, within yourself as well, mate, been able to scale footprints alongside Christian without losing yourself within that kind of setup? Because to me, you're the Scott I knew when you were Scott Gunn, powered by EXP. Nothing's changed. It's just a different name on the board.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, what we've been really good is, here we go again, but exactly the same as EXP. All my agents have full autonomy. I'm not all over them around what's your standard of photography, what's your standard of description, what's your response time when a valuation lead comes in. Exactly the same as, Adam has never phoned you or I, Liam, to say your photos aren't very good on 2 Princess Margaret Avenue, or, so-and-so's called and said they haven't heard back from you for 24 hours. We were given full autonomy to run our business. And obviously the biggest worry there is people think, well, if we give people full autonomy, then the standards are going to get lower and lower. The opposite seems to be true from what I can see.
They feel like they own it.
Yeah, absolutely. And so
I think this is why marketing's got better since self-employed agents in the UK. I don't know what it's like for you, Dan, but self-employed agency in the UK, because it's growing, it's our name on the board. We're held more accountable. And ultimately, no one wants shit photos. And that's probably the same there. Scott, you don't have to turn
No one
around to
wants
someone and go,
shit reviews, leave it, Liam.
and that.
There you go. No one wants a shit review to this.
We've only got one bad one. It's about me. We've only got one. Everyone else has got every 5-star review. There's only one review about me. It says absolutely disgusting, and without going into detail, it's totally fair enough. I deserved it. It's about an hour late for reviewing, so yeah, I deserve that one.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, but again, when you talk about these types of things and you go down that entrepreneurial side of people have ownership of their own business, it's their reputation on the line, which is a lot more important to them, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? Even if they're still a part of a team, it's their reputation on the line as well.
And ultimately, the good ones will stay, and the bad ones will fail and not. So it becomes kind of self-fulfilling anyway. But the team leaders that I'm seeing having a hard time are still trying to do their own business, make their own sales, look after their agents on revenue share, but also literally be like puppet masters for their agents. I think those people find it really hard.
There's a benefit here. So, like, for example, for me to be a team leader, right, it's something that we would want. We need to provide value for the agents because at the end of the day, I'm not a team leader for no reason. Like, I'm not giving out free advice all of the time. Like, don't get me wrong, you've got access to a portal there that you just mentioned before, the room that you'd mentioned, and you can ask all of these people, and you get that within your brokerage here as well. We have like sort of WhatsApp groups, Facebook groups, etc. that do the same sort of thing. But when you have a team, you've got someone that's your port of call. So like I'm literally hands-on with them. Like they have questions. And for very new agents, right? Like here, the entire business here for us is all but commission based. There's no salary for anybody. So you're not walking through the door like, oh, okay, I make XYZ amount of money for the year. I just need a budget to live on that. And then I can learn everything from whoever my mentor is, team leader as well. So when you step yourself into the business over here, it's pretty much, we've talked about this, it's like you're starting your own business, but a team can provide you with the foundation to be successful. So like teams often have already a pipeline. They've already got clients that they're working with. They've already got new clients coming through the door that might not fit the portfolio of certain people within the group. So it's like, hey, there's a person looking for a house over here in this area. I don't tend to go to that area. It's too far away from me. So if you want to work that lead, we're going to pass that lead on to you. But that's not free either. Like, you know what I mean? If you make a $400,000 sale, there's going to be a part of that commission that you make in whether it's a 2 or 2.5% or 3% commission. Part of the funds that is generated from that is going to go towards paying the person who provided the lead. So if the team is spending marketing dollars on generating leads to come through the door, and then I give those leads to people, I can't just take that as a cost as like, oh, this is the cost of having a team. There's got to be a cost of money coming back to me so that I can keep building the pipeline for people to keep working. Is that something that you have in your business?
Yeah, it is. And the key for it is to be transparent, I think, around what your investment is and therefore what you get back. So every single person in this office knows how much our bills are, so they can see what we're reinvesting in the business, which I think is really important. So if I have a conversation with a new, prospect, an agent, I will always show them, I've got a spreadsheet that shows them, if you bring in X amount of money, this is how much you will take home. If you're a solo operator, this is how much you'll take home if you're part of a team. And if we do the example I always show with 36 sales, 4.5 grand each, there's a £26,000 difference there between being in a team or operating solo. You're on £26,000 more if you fly solo. So therefore, I've got to show you where £26,000 worth of value comes from being part of the footprints. There's various ways we do it. We've got someone here who does all of their compliance. So if someone goes out to a house, they've only got to get agreement to come on the market with us and take the pictures. And someone else in the office here will do their AML, will get the agreement signed, will order their floor plan, their EPC. So all the things that agents don't like doing. I could stop there and agents would sign.
Yeah.
Honestly, not having to do that is a big, big deal for people. But also when we do if we do the canvassing, I will tell people how much we've spent on it, how many leaflets we've done. They all know how much we're spending on social media ads. Because what I think is really important, of that £26,000 that they're paying me, the profit margin would probably be for me about 8, give or take.
Okay.
So it's really important to me that they don't see it as I've paid that amount over and Scott's got to keep £26,000, because that is not the case. It's an expensive
It's
business
got to
to
be
run.
value both ways, hasn't
No,
it?
100%,
Yeah.
100%. But again, as well, like people have to understand, like this is the one thing, people tend to think that I should be paid my worth, but that's just not how capitalism works. The business has to keep working. The business has to keep chundering out leads for you to work, and they also then need to pay the people who are doing all of the work for you, that are doing the things that they don't want to do at the end of the day as well. So, and at the end of the day as well, we don't all work for free. There's got to be some kind of profit in it for somebody somewhere along the line. So they have to understand
That's
that.
so American. That's so American, isn't it? We don't say that in the UK, Danny. We're a bit more reserved.
A bit more reserved. Hey, listen.
Guys, I'm a little bit conscious of time because Scott, I know you've got a call at
Yeah,
5:30.
yeah.
So just kind of closing up, really.
Honestly, I think we could do another call, to be honest, because
Oh,
I've still got
there's
loads.
so much to go through, isn't there?
Yeah, I've still got loads that I
Anytime.
want
Scott,
to talk
We
about, to
can
be
do
honest,
that.
yeah.
Scott, if someone was listening today, what would make, or what advice would you give them? So if there's an agent sat there today on the fence.
I would say, what would be the advice? That if someone's sitting on the fence, it's probably because they're waiting for the clouds to part and that blue sky to appear in their life, where everything is lined up perfectly well to go and start their own business. And that can be, I'm just going to wait to get Brexit out of the way. And we'll go backwards on this one,
There's
because
always
this is my
something,
favourite
isn't
thing
there?
to do. Let's get this Ukraine war out of the way. Let's get Brexit out of the way. What was before Brexit? What was the excuse before Brexit? A general election or
COVID's in the
something.
way, general election.
COVID's in a way, and I actually play this game with people where we go back like 25 years of reasons not to start your business right now. And in your personal life, if it's a baby on the way, we're going to move house, I'm going on holiday, or all these things, that doesn't exist, right? That perfect time doesn't exist. But there's, and this is not my line, but it's a cool line, there's never a bad time to start a good business. And I think if you're on the fence and you want to do it, I would advise you just to look at it as just one step at a time. What's the next thing you can do to get this started? Because, and it's a longer winded answer than maybe we're looking for now, but people start worrying about things before they need to worry about them. Like, I don't want to start a business because I don't know how to do year-end accounts. Well, don't worry about it. You haven't got to do that for a year.
Plus, that's
And
what you
all
pay
these
the company
things.
for.
Yeah, but these are all the things, like every time someone joins the business, within like 2 days, they'll say, how do we put an offer in on the CRM? And I'll say, have you got one? No. Let's not fucking worry about that today then. Like, let's worry about what you've got to worry about. Because if you look at it, there are a million reasons not to start a business, and they are so easy to find. I think for me, the ultimate question is, in 10 years' time, are you more likely to regret you never tried, or more likely to regret that you tried and it failed? I think it's very unlikely anyone looks back and regrets trying something, even if it fails.
Love it. What a way to finish up there, Scott. Love it. There's definitely a part two somewhere here, isn't there?
I think so too, because I don't know about you, like, but I love teaching people about investing. So, like, and the entrepreneurial world sort of goes down that line of thinking. Do you know what I mean? So, I definitely think the part two is 100%
Anytime.
sometime in the mix, maybe, because I've still got thousands of questions here, like, that I wanted to ask you.
Yeah. Well,
yeah, anytime.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, we'll get that sorted. Scott, really appreciate you coming on, mate. I think what people should take away from the conversation ultimately is that none of this has happened by accident. It may have at the very beginning, but it's developed into something incredible, I think. Now, you don't build a team, you build a reputation, and that's clear in Margate. You build something that can survive without putting years into the fundamentals. You've got to be willing to work when nobody's watching, make mistakes, take responsibility, learn, adapt, and keep everything moving forward, not just for yourself, but for your team as well. And what I love about that story, Scott, is that it isn't just about selling more houses and chasing that big commission check. You're building it around people, you're building a team, you're creating something that hopefully becomes bigger than that one individual. And ultimately, mate, you may not realize it, but that is leadership within real estate. And I do think you are one of those trailblazers within the space. Now, whether you're an estate agent in Margate, an agent in America, or somebody listening to this thinking about taking the next step into business ownership, the principles really don't change. Know your job, take ownership, surround yourself with great people, and set the standard. Ultimately, don't be good, be great, and then live up to that standard every single day. Scott, really appreciate you for being open with us today, and thanks for sharing those lessons as well as the wins. And I'm generally excited to see where you take footprint in the next 5, 10, maybe even 20 years if you're still about in the industry then. Danny, always a pleasure. And to everybody else listening to Agents Across the Pond, don't just listen to the conversations like this. Get motivated every time you listen to us and go and implement something. Take something from it. Make the phone call, have the difficult conversations, build the system, hire the people, take that risk, because we are only on this planet once. Whatever your next move is, stop talking about it and get a grip. Execute it. We'll see you on the next episode of Agents Across the Pond. See you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.